If you're someone that's familiar with 60 card formats, you would know by now that standard is a bit of a hot topic. The recent changes to Universe Beyond and all the standard legal sets has made people really turn away from the format or not even try it in the first place. I honestly think this is actually quite a bummer given how successful I think Foundations was last year and how fun that set was just to change up the meta a bit in standard, introduce really good staples, and honestly it was just really fun to draft as well. Given all the recent changes in the last 12 months, I haven't really been able to commit to building another standard deck in paper, and I've really been trying modern, but since the release of Edge of Eternities, something really changed, and for once, I really wanted to try start playing the format again. This set released a bunch of bangers, which I really think are slept on, and there are some amazing decks going around that I wanted to play. Along with all these changes, I really just wanted to challenge myself in another 60 card format, so I'm sure you've guessed it by now, this is a standard video. Before we get into this video, I do want to share that I'm now a Palms Up Gaming affiliate. You can use my link down in the description for 10% off. And if you're really cool and you want to play standard or modern against me, join my Discord, which will also be down below. Now, the first thing I did was boot up Arena, and I'm sure if you've ever played Arena before, you would know it's almost impossible to build a deck in that game without spending like $100 on rare wildcards. So I'm sure you guessed it, I spent like, and I don't even want to talk about how much money I spent on not even real cards that I can hold in my hand. But anyway, we have a deck. The deck I did choose to make was an Orzhov Self-Blink, which is a nice removal heavy centered deck that uses a lot of cards from Edge of Eternities, which is why I wanted to get back into the format in the first place. Now, to quickly go over what the deck does, firstly we play a playset of Cosmogrand Zenith and Algae Acolytes, both of which are creatures that provide us a suite of value, helping us make tokens, draw cards, and even buff your creatures. Coupled with a bunch of like the smaller, more bouncy stuff like the Nurturing Pixie and the Sunbird Kirin, both of which are just really evasive and cheeky creatures. All our creatures can pretty much do everything we need. Additionally, the deck is filled with a bunch of really strong enchantment removal, as Mono Black lost a lot of its really good removal during the last rotation in Standard, but Nowhere to Run and Momentum Breaker, as well as our bounce effects, really help us recur value from our permanent type removal. Finally, there are a few other cheeky cards like Tragic Trajectory, Tiny Bones Joins Up, Shout Out, and Elspeth Storm Slayer. God, that is so hard to say. Which fill out the rest of our deck with pretty much everything else we need. Now, after I made my first standard deck in a while, I made a deal with myself. If I could hit at least Diamond playing in the Arena, then I would build a deck in paper and take it to my LGS and play. So with that being said, I pretty much just started grinding Arena. I really only had enough time to play right before bed on my iPad, and I just shot up to Platinum in I think it was like 2 or 3 days. Most of the matchups around here, a lot of the people were just having fun or they're testing out new decks and they feel like playing ranked, and so I found that my deck was pretty comfortable at like beating these best of 1 matchups, and I just had a lot of fun playing it. That is funny as. Along this short journey so far, I did have a really good taste at versing what some of the meta decks are like, especially VV and stuff, and I thought my matchups were okay for the most part. Now, speaking of the meta focused decks, there are really only like 5 main decks to worry about when you are grinding Arena, which are Izzet Cauldron, Green Counters, Mono White Life Gain, Azorius Control, and just like your classic red aggro matchups. I also did verse a couple of these really cool Boros Discover decks which flip things off the top and cast them from exile, and I really did enjoy playing that deck. Now, all of these decks in the meta definitely do have their strengths and weaknesses, but I really found the Mono White Life Gain to be the hardest one to verse out of all of them. Similar to VV, it's super resilient, it can go tall, it can go wide, and I feel like there are just too many threats that my removal couldn't just keep up. Additionally, I feel like the variation of the green counter decks that use that, I forgot what it's called, that fucking green card, it's like a 4 cost and it puts counters on everything based on its power, is so broken if you don't remove it. And I feel like most of my removal I had in this deck wasn't targeted enough to get rid of this one, except for like Get Lost, but oh my god, that card is busted. Now, once we did hit Platinum, I definitely hit my first sort of wall, and I was actually quite disappointed in myself given that I really thought I was playing my deck to the best of its ability, but apparently not, as I hit this rank, I was really bouncing between win and loss, and I really just couldn't get past Plat 4. Looking back on this, I probably should have switched from best of 1 to best of 3s here, as my deck was really designed to play in best of 3s, but I was just impatient, and to be honest, I didn't even really know if people played the best of 3 formats, but if I wanted a challenge, I really should have switched at this exact exact moment. Eventually, I did decide to change my deck around a bit and try a new Orzhov list that I found on Reddit one morning, and honestly, it was really, really cool and definitely more appropriate for best of ones. It uses some really weird cards like the Most Helpful Weaver and Corpse of the Lost to really provide so much pressure on the board earlier on, and additionally, the star of the show is definitely a card called United Battlefront, which is a 4-mana sorcery which says, look at the top 7 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanents with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. Seriously, when playing through Platinum, it wasn't really uncommon for me to just cast this on curve, flip over like 2 or 3 removals, pick the exact ones that I needed, and people would just forfeit the game right there. Or I would just swing for lethal. This card was so powerful if you had it earlier on and you could play it on curve without being countered or anything. But sometimes, just sometimes it whiffs, but most of the time it's really, really good. Now, I know this sounds really cliche, but it honestly felt so natural to pilot this deck. Everything just played out on curve really well. I found it was so resistant, it was so aggro, and thematically, it was exactly what I liked. I got to play skeletons, which you don't get to do in any other format in Magic, so I was so happy about that. I seriously felt like I had an answer for every single threat that was on the board, every single problem I faced in these best of 1 matches, and it just felt so good to pilot from start to finish. I'll show you some clips so you can really understand what I went through. Hello, it's editing Cassa. Quickly, if you don't know what's happening in this clip, basically Nowhere to Run has an ability on it which basically nullifies all ward and hexproof costs, and the amount of times people get baited into casting protection spells like Snakeskin Veil or whatever onto creatures that they think are protected is so funny, and it happens so much. It's so funny, it's so good. Nowhere to Run is a goated card. The guy fucked up so badly. What? This is insane. This deck is insane. Next turn, if I get United Battlefront off, he loses the game. If he doesn't play a permanent. Oh, he's got nothing. Watch this. Don't whiff. Oh, we're chilling. 1 and...
Did you get haste? How do you get haste?
The Corpse of the Lost.
Oh, skeleton's haste. Yeah.
Done. Diamond. Let's go!
Congrats.
Yeah, baby. Show it to me. Woo! Now, eventually, after piloting this new deck in Platinum, after 1 day, I hit Diamond, which I was really proud of. I felt like everything was working fine, and I knew by the time I hit Diamond 4, I was really going to start versing some of the meta decks now, which I didn't have too much of a taste for with this new list. Another funny thing I noticed was that there was really no mirror matchups. I definitely didn't verse any other of like these weird aggro skeleton decks, and I definitely didn't even verse any of the Orzhov Blink list that I was versing. I'm not sure if that's something that Arena does specifically, or if people just aren't playing this list very often, but I really thought I would find more of this Orzhov self-blink deck that I was playing earlier, as it was pretty popular on like the MTG meta share. Now, once we really got stuck into Diamond, it was pretty apparent that every deck I was going to be versing would be a meta deck, and that was fine, but now it was really time for me to learn how I was going to focus on building this deck to really adapt to these scenarios. Firstly, I put Rest in Peace in the main board, which was a must to deal with all those pesky graveyard decks / VV decks, and it basically turned them all off and gave me a way better matchup. The first day of grinding out the Diamond ranks, I really did find it pretty easy for most of the matchups, and we made it all the way to Diamond 2 with pretty relative ease. Really, one of the main challenges I had with the VV decks, and even with Rest in Peace played out on curve, it was still just such a resilient deck, and I understand why it's the best deck in the format, and I'm hoping by the time this video is public, VV is already gone and banned, but we won't know. When I was in these Diamond matchups, I was also way stricter with my mulligans, and I definitely kept digging for better hands, even if it means I started on 1 or 2 cards less, as it made sure I had enough of like the things I needed against what I was assuming my matchups would be. Now, I want to tell you about one of my most underrated cards in the entire deck, and that's Lord Skitter's Blessing. This 2-mana enchantment is basically a cheaper, more synergistic Phyrexian Arena in our deck, which is so good. And let me show you a scenario. Turn 1, you drop the Optimistic Scavenger and pass, and then turn 2, you drop Lord Skitter's Blessing. This triggers the Optimistic Scavenger to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then the Wicked Roll enters, which allows you to put another +1/+1 counter on it, and then the Wicked Roll itself also gives it +1/+1. Now your Optimistic Scavenger, which was just a 1-drop, is now a 4/4 and it's swinging on turn 2 for so much damage. If you're on the play and you drop this turn 1 and then turn 2, most of the time people aren't going to be able to remove it unless they play something like Into the Floodmoor, but that's not always the case, and especially in best of ones, this was so powerful. To top this all off, you could also just draw an additional card on your next turn if it isn't taken off the board, as Lord Skitter's Blessing allows you to draw a card if you control an enchanted permanent on every single upkeep. Now, I know getting to Mythic would be an absolute hurdle, and honestly, I just had so much fun playing in these ranks. I found all the matchups to be so close and so exciting. There was so much interaction and so much stuff to just look out for at all times, and even in a best of one scenario, I felt I was really just enjoying the format. My deck was definitely different, and I know maybe people have played it before, and it's not original to me. I definitely didn't make it, but I loved playing it. It was thematically cool, and honestly, I didn't see any others in the wild. Now, unfortunately, I did start this challenge like 6 days before the season ended in Arena, so one morning when I did lock in, my whole rank was gone, which is really sad. And I just didn't have the time to grind all the way back up to Mythic again, especially not if I wanted to get this video out. But honestly, I was pretty happy finishing in like the middle of Diamond 2. Now, after all the ranks reset in Arena, there was really only one thing left to do, and that was to just buy the cards. I dug through my bulk and I found a good chunk of cards as I did play around these standard sets, and I just had things lying around. So I think I only spent like $100 to order the rest of the cards that I needed, excluding my sideboard. So let me show you the deck. Hello, my cards are at the post office, so please come with me on this wonderful day to get the cards I need to finish the deck.
Goods acquired. Shout out. All right, we have the deck in paper, and I'm actually really hyped for this. We're missing like 3 or 4 cards, I think. They're all lands, so it's not super important, at least to this video, but I'll probably try to get those before I go to an LGS and play. But this is it. Firstly, let me show you the creatures. So these are our only like direct creatures that we play in the deck, but we've got a bunch of other things that make creatures later on. So we've got a full play set of Forsaken Miners. These are just really resilient skeletons, and they really just, you know, they keep coming back, they keep swinging, and they're just like a really nice dispendable creature. And then we've got a play set of Optimistic Scavengers. These are really strong and I really love them, and they have so much synergy with the rest of the deck. And now this is where the deck gets a bit more funky. We've got a bunch of enchantments that also make skeletons and other just tokens. So we run a playset of something called Case of the Stash Skeleton. Basically, when it enters, it makes a 2/1 black skeleton creature token, and it's suspected, meaning it has menace and it can't block. And to solve the case, if you control no suspected skeletons, basically it unlocks its final ability, which allows you to search for any card in your library and put it straight into your hand. So that's really, really cool. Next is Origin of Spider-Man, and I forgot what this is called already in like the fake, what's it called? Omen Path. But basically, this is a saga that came out in the Spider-Man set. At stage 1, it makes a token. Stage 2 puts a +1/+1 counter on something, and stage 3 gives something double strike. So yeah, that double strike is very sneaky, and people don't really realize what the case is doing. Finally is Corpse of the Lost, and this is probably one of my favorite cards in Standard right now. Basically, it's an enchantment. When it enters, it makes a 2/2 skeleton pirate. If I've got them somewhere, yeah, shout out skeleton pirates. And basically, it gives all my skeletons +1/+0 and haste, which is really, really cool. And on top of that, at the beginning of my end step, if I've descended, I can pay 1 life and put this back into my hand so I can cast it again on a later turn. Basically, to descend, you put a permanent into your graveyard from anywhere. So yeah, that's really, really cool. Now, to go over more of like the removal type stuff in the deck, we run 3 Seam Rips. Seam Rips are from Edge of Eternities. They're just a really good enchantment removal, exiling anything with mana value 2 or less. We've got Sheltered by Ghosts. I'm sure if you've played Standard before, you're familiar with these. These are so powerful and they're so synergistic with the Optimistic Scavengers. Lord Skitter's Blessing. We've already spoken about these ones. Awesome cards. Shattered Wilds of Eldraine. Rest in Peace. I don't think I'm going to play Rest in Peace in my main board like normally. This is definitely more of a sideboard card unless I'm playing Best of Ones. But I wanted to build the deck that got me to Diamond, so this is it. And finally, I've already spoken about this, one of the most awesome cards ever, United Battlefront. This is such a fun card, and when it doesn't whiff, it's really, really cool. Other than that, just all the lands. And we haven't got a sideboard yet because I've been playing Best of Ones, and buying Magic cards is expensive. Overall, this journey was really, really fun. I really, really did enjoy making this video. Standard is definitely dividing at times, but ultimately, the best part about Magic is that you can choose to engage with it how you want. You don't need to rush into formats. You don't need to force yourself to play anything. You don't need to do anything Magic. At the end of the day, it is a hobby and you should engage with it at a pace that you enjoy and engage with the sets that you like. My advice if you do want to get into Standard is that you should just ignore the noise for a little bit. Ignore the negativity around social media and just build a deck that you like. It doesn't have to be meta defining. It doesn't have to be expensive or polished or fancy. Just build something that you like, that resonates with you, and just give the format a go. Rock up to your LGS, and if people are playing Standard there, ask if you can join in. Rock up on a Standard night and just give it a go. Now, I'm thinking about making a part 2 for this video, so if you did enjoy this one, please let me know in the comments if you do want to see one, where I take the deck to an LGS and I vlog my journey and my matchups, and really just experience the deck more in paper. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you want, check out some other videos that are linked down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.